Good afternoon. Welcome to Jerusalem. I'm Avraham Shira. We're holding in Torah 65 of Likutei Moharan's masterwork of Rabbi Nachman. And we're in the paragraph that begins, Ahachakach mekilim. Afterwards, when the suffering has been contained, the suffering of life, wherever you find it, however you perceive it, wherever you feel it in your body, in your heart, in your mind, and you're comforted from that, how do you get this comfort? Especially through the new insights that you get by way of the suffering. The new Torah insights, the new insights of your life and how it fits into the divine patterns of the Torah. The new insights that you see in life around you. All this brings new knowledge, which expands the mind. When your mind is expanded, the suffering leaves you. Because you see, it's part of a greater picture, a better picture, a picture that the world can't give you, a picture that you have to see for yourself. And once your filter is clear, and your heart is open, and your mind is ready, then you start to see how it really is all one, all tov, as we've been learning for many days. Because we learned before already that the suffering causes us to come to nullification and surrender. To surrender to Hashem. Wherever we are. Whatever thing that we need to surrender. And usually our surrendering is our attachments to this world. Because we're so attached to things that they cause us to suffer when we're worried about them. Marbim nechasim, marbim daga, as Rebbe Akiva says in Pirkei Avot. So if we feel the pain of our stuff, maybe we should unload some of that stuff, some of those, and that includes dreams of stuff. The bigger house, the bigger boat, the bigger car. Because that stuff's just going to increase your worry for it. And your insurance bill. Now, so first is you get the suffering. And then you surrender to it. And then you get the new picture of the way things are. And then when you come back from the nullification and the surrender, when you come back from it and your old self kind of slips into place before you even know it, and you're kind of thinking the same thoughts you always thought, but you see there is a change. But this tiny change is incremental, becomes a very great thing. And the change is that I remember a trace of when I was in the oneness. A trace when you felt it's all really one. It's all really good here. I just never saw it. I didn't see it. I didn't smell it. I didn't taste it. And when you leave it, you definitely know you've left it, because suddenly things bother you that didn't used to bother you. But there's still a trace of the oneness left on the filter of your mind. And that trace we need very much. Why? So we come back to this. The impression remains of those precious moments of the oneness that comes from the surrender. And this causes the renewal of the Torah. Because remember, the Torah is the fabric of reality. It's not a book. It is a constant stream of God's speeching the universe into existence. It's a constant stream of every verse in the Torah. Lo'olam devarchav nitzav b'shamayim. We say on Rosh Hashanah, forever your word is hanging in heaven. Where's heaven? Well, folks, that's the universal internet. And when God says something, it keeps on getting said forever. And when you say it, you link up your little software to the big picture, to the big boss, and your words become part of his words, which are part of forever, eternity. And then you get new Torah insight. According to who you are, according to what you've gone through, according to the suffering you went through, according to the insight that came from the suffering that was caused by the fact that you were allowed yourself to say, I don't know anything, I'm sorry, I surrender, God. I give you back everything. It's your world and you run it the best. Because through this nullification to the tachlit, the idea that it's all good, that idea that it's all good is the purpose. And he comprehends the idea, the intellectual idea, that they're all really favors that are coming to us. Saba Yisrael Odezer said, if I had to go through all the sufferings again, I would do them double. And he had 12 children, and I think he lost more than half to a plague in Tiberia in the 20s. And he lived in poverty his whole life. Pretty much. At the end, I think people were taking care of him because they were so honored to have him in their house, which is a great honor, that you couldn't call him a poor man because the whole world was at his hands. At least at a certain spiritual level, for sure. Now, these new insights, Samecha hu kli chidushim doraita. And so the simcha that comes from this recognition that it's all good, that makes you happy, because you see that all our pain is, it's not that the pain is illusion, the pain is real. But the reasoning behind the pain is our illusion. Thinking, oh, I did this, oh, I'm not, you hurt me, you did this to me, I did, all this kind of thinking is very limited in understanding why God does things and allows things to happen in the world. And people always say, what about the Holocaust? And I say, remember this. Where was man in the Holocaust? And don't ask me what about the Holocaust. Say, where was man in the Holocaust? Because Hashem didn't cause the Holocaust. Hashem allowed the evil to attack the vulnerable. The force fields of protection were removed. Because these were great people in Europe back in that day. Learned, holy, dedicated people. But at one point, the protection was removed. And it was time to leave. Some left and some didn't. But from all of that comes a vessel. The vessel is created from the suffering. You have to melt the glass to make a form, to make a beautiful cup. You have to carve the wood. You have to engrave the gold. Wherever you want to make a form or a vessel, there's got to be some manipulation of matter. And the manipulation of matter causes a little pain or struggling or whatever, however you practice your art form, let's say. That hard work is creating the vessel. Once you have the vessel, it's come from the suffering and the hard work of getting to the point of receiving the oneness and understanding that's the purpose, to see it. Then you have that vessel that can receive it and hold an impression of it for the rest of your life. So that even if you feel far off from Hashem today, fine, that's good. Because that's where you are. And where you are is good, because it's all good. And if you feel far and you don't like feeling far, well, let's do something like learn Torah, pray, meditate, do a good deed, open your heart, give a little charity to somebody, surprise somebody with a good thought, a good word, a hug. Any of those things change our day. And you change your day, you change your life. Because life is lived very incrementally. Small places and spaces of time. Okay? Now, and so when you come back, though, you have this vessel that receives new Torah insight. And this is what our sages taught in Masechet Shabbat, B'sha'ah sha'amru, at the hour that Israel said, Na'aseh v'nishma, the Jewish people told God at Mount Sinai, don't worry, we're not worried about what's in the book. We'll do it and then we'll find out what's in the book. Just tell us the basics. Na'aseh v'nishma means I have faith in you. You are my boss. You are my wife. You are my friend. And I trust you, then I can hear what you have to say. And if it sounds right and it rings the bell of truth in the heart, then I'm going to do it. And afterwards I'll figure out the brilliance of your wisdom. And when we're talking about God's wisdom, it's really brilliant. It's not just a little better than us. Whoever us is. Whoever the wisest person is. It's a drop in the ocean. And 60,000 600,000 angels came down from heaven. That's a big pack, right? That's 10 stadiums flying out of the sky of angels. And they gave 2 crowns on the head of all of them. Every person, when they said, I will do it and then I'll understand, they received 2 crowns. Oh, and that was a good thing. That was a good day. When the Jewish people received the Torah, they also paved the way for the redemption and the future of all humanity, which we believe we're in the midst of now. But they made the golden calf, a few stragglers, what's called the mixed multitude, which are basically Egyptians that attached onto the holy people when they came out of Egypt. They said, look, Pharaoh's country is destroyed. We'll go away with this Jewish guy because he seems to have a word open in heaven. And they straggled out, but they weren't prepared to follow Moses implicitly and say, Naseh v'nishma. We'll do it and we'll see it and we'll do it. We'll do it and we'll understand it. And then they made the golden calf, and the people fell with it, and then most of the people were not willing to fight against it, which was the big mistake. And then what happened was they lost the crown, and that's the crown we get back every Friday, which we talked about this on our Erev Shabbat talk. Now, but in the future, God will give back those crowns. And the joy of the world, or can be translated, the joy of forever, will be upon their head. Because Shabbat, of course, is a spark of the world to come. The world that was in the beginning, the world of infinity, without the boundaries that we find so troublesome in this world. Like a body is a boundary, right? Not being able to travel at the speed of light is a boundary for a soul. Because soul's thoughts travel at the speed of thought, which is faster than light. So the joy is getting to that point where you're willing to say, I'll do it and then I will understand. Which is the idea of receiving the Torah. You know, when you receive something, it's not like conditional. Good God, I'll receive it, but I need to get my paycheck ahead of time. No. But rather through the new idea that comes from the Torah, through the surrender to the goodness, well, then we can receive a spark of that renewal. So you see, if it makes sense, so think about it. If I don't believe it's good, what am I making the efforts for? And if I doubt that it's good, what kind of vessel am I going to have to receive something? And by doing all of that process, the suffering gets chilled. Right? You know that word. It's a pretty popular word these days. Chill, right? Relax. Well, the greatest relaxing is when the suffering is removed. Because when your anxiousness and your pain and your suffering are chilled, then you quench the thirst of the soul. Because the soul's thirst is to be like it was in the beginning, pure and free and without hurt, without damage, without doubt, without confusion. Because the feeling of the pain is, the Rebbe gives it the nickname, the thirst of the soul. The thirst to be rid of that. Now he's going to go into a whole drasha, interesting, that the idea of being thirsty is the idea of the saltiness of things. And the salting of things. What do you do when you salt something? You salt a cucumber and make a pickle. What are you doing? The salt is actually dragging the moisture out of the thing. Salt fish so it'll last longer, and meat. Like the old-timers used to do it all the time because that's the only way they could survive. Now we have refrigerators and freezers, and salting is, well, it's not as popular as it used to be. But the point is that the salt, it takes out the water from a thing. When you take the water out, the food becomes salty. And that's, he says, is this an aspect of Yisurin. It's the squeezing, it's the shrinking of something. And here we're talking about the shrinking of the heart. That's exactly when we suffer the most. When I don't want to give, I don't want to live, I don't want to be, I don't want to participate, I don't want to share, I just want to crawl up under my covers. This is the suffering. I don't want to be part of my own life. That's not good, because you got no other place to be. And unless you want to be on YouTube and you can fantasize about being in somebody else's life, which I wouldn't recommend, because that doesn't last too long either. As our sages taught, the covenant is an aspect of salt, saltiness, because salt doesn't rot. Salt does not go bad. It's a rock. It could stand on your table for another 20,000 years. Now, that's the idea of our covenant with Hashem. It does not go bad. We might challenge it, we might break something, but we're still coming back. And the covenant is in the suffering. The covenant means, if we have a covenant on a business deal even, and all of a sudden the market changes and your dollar is not as worth as much as my shekel, or vice versa, oh, I'm losing money. You're not losing money. You're just changing the value of things because of the world market climate, let's say. But I've lost. Yesterday, my $100 was worth 120. No. Yesterday was a different creation, and today's a new creation. And tomorrow will be another creation. And the dollar will probably change, and so will the shekel, etc., etc. And therefore, the suffering, you see, is attached to my attachment to an idea. The idea is what this is worth. This is not worth that. And this used car's got a flat tire now, and I don't want it anymore. You could just drive yourself crazy with these things, and people do. And they get so wrapped up in the pain of their attachments that they don't recognize that the pain of the attachments are basically becoming their life. And that becomes very damaging over time, especially to your family. God forbid. So this is the covenant is, well, we made a deal. And now the conditions changed. We said this thing cost $1,000, and now tomorrow it's worth more because the change of the currency. What are you going to do? Start fighting about it? Well, not if you're a mensch, not if you're a ben adam. If you're a person, you're a man, you're a woman of integrity. No, you honor your word, because that's more important than any business deal. Honoring your word means my truth is the same always. And I speak the truth and I live the truth, and if I make a fall from that truth, I will make attempt to repair. And this is this Brit Melach, this covenant that comes about through and in the suffering. Ki hanefesh hi bat asecho. Now he tells us another interesting idea, that the soul itself is the daughter of your intellect. Now, how does that work out? Because the essential growing and expanding of your soul is through your intellect. Your intellect is feeding your soul all the time. So the daughter is the receiver of the life force and the power from the parents. So your intellect is feeding your soul. The more you learn, the more your soul expands. They're related. They're not separate concepts. Don't let anybody's old ideas about theology impact what we know. Your physical and your spiritual and your intellectual and your emotional selves are all feeding each other all the time. And they're taking from each other too when the occasion arises. Again, the soul is the daughter of your intellect. And you, just like you raise your child, you raise your own mind. That you raise it, you build it, and you fix it. Because, and he connects the two ideas in one verse, without knowledge, nefesh lo tov. What good is a soul if you don't have good knowledge? It's just a soul that wants to go out, eat, sleep, and do all the things all the other animals do. And that's not why we're here, to be animals. But when your intellect is whole and complete, it creates fruit. It creates new nourishment. A fruit is a piece of nourishment to give life. So your intellect can give forth new things that give life to others. And to yourself. But when the intellect is damaged, then your intellect doesn't get its food, then it's like a salted land, like the Romans used to salt the soil back in the day, so that the native economies couldn't operate, and they would have to buy Russian wheat. Isn't that surprising? Does that sound interesting? Does that sound familiar? Destroy his farm so they have to buy from you. And let's not even connect that to the idea of governments paying their farmers not to grow, and then the people have to buy wheat from somewhere else. Surprise. So this is the idea of the salted land, is this idea of the salted soul that's shrunk up, and it needs new intellect. And these are the sufferings that we feel. They shrink our soul. And then our seichel is not complete. The thirst of the soul, but through the renewal of the Torah insights, we cool out, we cool down the suffering by new Torah insights, and they quench the thirst. As Isaiah said, all the ones who are thirsty, come to the water. And this is the idea, an amazing idea. Fortunate is the one that God chastises, that God punishes a little bit. And from His Torah He will teach you. So when it hurts, that means God is preparing us to receive new Torah if we receive it properly. And this is a great idea that we're going to continue with tomorrow. So God bless you all. Have a great evening, afternoon, night, wherever you are. Enjoy, review. Rebbe Nachman's ideas are slippery because they're so high and perfect in the way that they describe ourselves to ourselves, in order that we can get a handle on who we are and who we want to be and how we're going to get there. God bless you all. We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye.